I'm facilitator for this meeting, right?
And we're recording now.
Yes, okay, I am.
Yes.
All right, so everybody knows each other. Nobody's absent. Okay, so jokes of the day.
My life's a joke, so there's my joke.
Oh,
I'm
no.
kidding. I'm kidding.
I have a really good one.
All right.
All right, so my friend thinks he is smart. He told me an onion is the only food that makes you cry, so I threw a coconut at his face.
That's funny.
Yeah.
What else? Anybody else have anything else?
Yeah, I got one. After a day of pillaging, the Mongol ruler liked to relax with an ice cream cone.
Can you repeat that? What was
Yeah,
that?
I couldn't hear you. Your microphone's a little.
There we go.
Yeah, get it
Okay.
out
Yeah,
of
I
your
mean-
ear.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it causes issues. After a day of pillaging, the Mongol ruler liked to relax with an ice cream
Oh my gosh.
Where did you find that one? That's awesome.
cone. Jokes of the day.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay. I don't have one. Like I said, my first joke, that was my thing. So Alyssa, you can go.
What lights up a soccer stadium? A soccer
What?
match.
Soccer match.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I guess is it my turn?
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. Reaching the end of a job interview, the human resources officer asks a young engineer fresh out of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, "And what starting salary are you looking for?" The engineer replies, "In the region of $125,000 a year, depending on the benefits package." The interviewer inquires, "Well, what would you say to a package of 5 weeks vacation, 14 paid holidays, full medical and dental, company matching retirement fund of 50% of salary, and a company car leased every 2 years, say a red Corvette?" The engineer sits up straight and says, "Wow, are you kidding?" The interviewer replies, "Yeah, but you started it."
I get it. That's
Chelsea?
I really don't have one, so I'm sorry. I was dealing with a lot right before, so.
Okay.
Um,
All right. So review and discuss feedback. It seems like the last feedback that we got was really good. And she thought we were a good team. And I mean, as far as I read, we did great.
Yeah.
She encouraged us to do the extra credit,
I saw that.
just to help other teams. I know, just to help other teams. But I mean, what did you guys take from it?
I thought it was really good. Obviously the feedback was really good. She kind of sold me on the extra credit in the way that she worded it, and that it would, not just necessarily be more points, which is totally how I was looking at it, but that it would maybe help a team that was struggling more to watch a team that was better and kind of see, just how we go about doing this. I don't know necessarily what makes us any better or worse than any other team, but apparently we're doing a good job. So that's the only thing that kind of had me semi-sold on it. Do I want to put in the extra time? Not really.
Yeah, I was almost going to text you guys and be like, should we reconsider? But I honestly could not even think of the time that I would have to do it.
Yeah,
I'm like already dying. I was like,
the only thing is like the time. So unfortunately.
yeah. An hour and a half doesn't seem like much, but it is. It's a lot. It's a lot of time.
It's an hour and a half more than I have.
Yeah, no kidding. But otherwise, I can totally see, how we could benefit to another team. But I also, it was eye-opening to kind of see that how well we are doing, which is good. We're all working together really well. So that's takes a lot of pressure off, I feel like. So that's good. Any other comments on that? You guys, anything else you want to add? Or can we move on? Move on?
Move on.
Okay. So did everyone do everything? Did you guys read and get to all those articles? There's a lot this week.
There's a lot of articles, but they're really good. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like the extra ones about the white privilege and things like that, like the men privilege and stuff, those ones are really good.
Mhm.
I thought that was great. And then the TED Talks are great.
Yeah, definitely enlightening. But did anybody miss anything, or are we pretty much all good to move on to the next portion?
Yeah, we're good.
We're
We're
good?
good.
All right. Make any needed changes? I don't think that we need to make any changes because everybody completed everything and we don't need to do any team charter action. So moving on to the team building activity. So she's asking, who we are is shaped not only by our genetics, but also by our experiences. Think about a defining moment in your life and briefly share it with your teammates and explain how it influences you now. Team members should comment on each other's responses. Anybody want to start? I can go.
Okay, I'll go next.
So I honestly, it says requires some thinking in advance of the meeting, but I honestly did not see this bullet when I reviewed it. So I did not prepare anything in advance. But the first thing that comes to mind is my elementary school 6th grade teacher. His name is Mr. Masuda. And he really took the extra time to help me get into a private school. He'd like tutor a bunch of students after school, all free of pay, and just took care of all of us. And I actually ended up getting into that private school. So I really looked up to him a lot, even from such a young age. And I remember that he said a few things to me that actually still stick with me to this day. First was, part of doing homework is turning it in, because there were a couple of times where I was like, I did the homework, and he was like, but you didn't turn it in. That's part of it. So just following through on everything that I was assigned to do. That was one thing. And then another thing was, he was scolding me about something. He said, if I wasn't mad, I wouldn't care. And that kind of affected me both in a good way and a bad way, because I started expecting that if people weren't mad, that they didn't care, which isn't exactly the case. So it all just depends how I interpreted it. But I think what he meant to say was that if I wasn't noticing that you were doing something wrong, then I didn't see something in you in the first place, was probably what he meant to say. So yeah, that was my thing. But I mean, that's one of many things that he did. And I still go back and visit that classroom when I'm back in Hawaii, because he was just such an influential person. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I don't think I have a teacher that I mean, unfortunately, that I think about that influences me like that, but that's really cool. I think, okay, I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on Rachel's thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut anybody off.
You're good, Chels.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to, I was going to forward just to mine, just so I don't forget mine. I don't know if mine's necessarily about a teacher or anybody in particular that influenced me. I think it was it's at a defining moment in your life that influences you now. So a year and a half ago, I moved back home from living in San Luis Obispo for a while. And I did it in a drop of a hat. Literally moved back home within the night, got all my stuff the next morning, went back to San Luis, picked up my stuff, and just came back home. And I thought, I quit my job. I was on the spot. I was not coming back tomorrow, just so you guys know. I mean, I told all my friends over there, I'm I'm not coming back. I'm moving back home forever, for now, and I got to go back home. And it was the most random, craziest thing I've ever done in my life, just because I had a really good job, full-time job in San Luis Obispo, and I had a lot of great friends, and just life seemed really great. but I needed to just like leave and come back home. And actually, me and my boyfriend broke up, or I broke up. Actually, I just had to come back home. But besides that point, I came back home and thought my life was completely like over and just like completely shattered from what I had done. But when I did come back home, I ended up finding the job that I have now at the museum, and I ended up going back to school. And that was like the biggest thing, that now it's like, okay, if I don't do something, like if I thinking about it, like my instincts, then I'm never going to do it and I'm never going to follow through with it. So I'm fine with the decision that I made now, but at beginning it there, I was like, no, that's it. My like whole life is over. But now I'm like really glad that I did it in the first place. I feel like it totally influences everything I do now, because I think about that really crazy moment in my life when I thought nothing was going to be better again. And now I'm like, wow, I'm at such a great point in my life where I'm actually doing super good at my job, and I'm actually going back to school. And it's like, I don't know, I feel great about it. So I think that's a really big, it only happened a couple of years ago, but it's a pretty big moment in my 27 years of life. So.
I totally get that, Chelsea. Totally been there. Definitely same situation. And it's crazy how much being outside of your comfort zone makes you grow as a person. And I feel like that's so important for every person to just break out. You know, you move away, you learn, you move back, you know, you do things, and that's what life's all about. It's the ups and the downs, but I feel like people learn the most in their downtimes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just, that's a good story. I like that.
I mean, I came back home for like a really good reason too. Like another reason was like my grandpa was sick, like family, like I have a huge family, like I told you guys. And that was like a big thing for me to be around my family, because they were so far away from me. I mean, only like 3 hours, but still it was pretty far. And I have a huge family. So being away from them was really hard for me. And it's kind of funny that these couple chapters talking about like diversity and stuff like that, like I feel like it kind of connects into my life, like keeping the culture. Like I think it was the second TED Talks about the guy that was talking about keeping the language alive and stuff, and then like making sure like to keep the cultures and everything. Where I guess New Zealand, and so that for me was like cool, because that's how I feel about my entire life. Actually, is keeping all my like family cultures and things that we value in our family alive, you know. And so if I coming back home really put that into play for me. So
Very cool.
Yeah, nice.
Anyone else?
So,
Scott?
Yeah. All right. So for me, I guess kind of a defining moment would be when I was shortly after I was born, my biological father left my mom. So she was single with a baby, and like he wasn't involved. So I don't know him. I've never seen him. I have no idea who the guy, I mean, I know his name, but aside from that, like I have no connection to him. So when I was like 6, my mom was hooked up with a guy who now I call dad. I've always called him dad from when I was like, 6, 7, 8 years old. But she met him, and he was like just immediately treated me like I was his kid. And there's just like, it was such unconditional love that, I don't know, it was crazy. I honestly, like thinking back on it and thinking about telling this story to you guys, it's like, I can't imagine who I would be or what my life would be like if I had never met my dad. So I don't know, for me, that's just something that I've learned a lot from him. And, just kind of that unconditional love of a total stranger. Well, I mean, ultimately he wasn't a stranger, but, taking a kid in that wasn't his and treating me like I was. So it's taught me a lot and definitely shaped kind of who I am and how I live my life. And yeah.
that's awesome, man. Because I mean, a lot of people don't get that. So it's like super cool for you to have that extra, that love in your life.
Yeah, that's great. I feel super fortunate.
Yeah.
Are you guys super close?
Yeah, we live in the same city, my mom and dad and me, so we see each other once a week or so. But yeah, we're super close as a family and spend a lot of time together.
That's great. That's an awesome story. I love that. It speaks wonders of your mom too.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. 6-7 years of being a single parent is not easy. So,
Yeah, I can't
you know,
imagine.
yeah. Alyssa or Lauren, whoever.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Huh?
Okay, sorry. No, I'm just making sure you guys can hear me. Well, mine's I think for mine, something that happened about 2 years ago really like shaped my life and like where I'm at today. I almost lost my husband. Um, he was shot in the head at work. So that's why I work 2 jobs and go to school, and I'm the head of the household. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather today. I feel like really sick too. So you guys notice. um, he, so that like really like changed like my life dramatically. It was a family member that did it, and they did it at work, and this guy was just super jealous of my husband and envious of his life. So that was the reason. So we're still going through the trial and the case and everything. But that kind of just shaped who I was and who I am today. Like I had to take charge of my life and step up and be the person that I am today. And um, I mean, I have a lot of stressors in my life, but I just make sure that I don't look at that and, just try to be happy about stuff, just anything. I mean, my kid, my son, my husband, everything. Um, so I think that's something that like really, really changed me. And that's why I want to be a leader and show other people that no matter what life puts you through, you can overcome it. I mean, everybody's going through things in their lives. So that's something that has like really, really just developed me, and like kind of I've been able to get out of my shell and just do more things and do more things at Starbucks or my second job, that I'm just trying to be more open and communication and just always trying to just learn and be knowledgeable about people. And I mean, I had big trust issues in the beginning. So when all of this happened, it was like, oh, humanity's just crazy. But after all of that had happened with my husband, I saw a lot of people just kind of come into our lives and help us and support us through it all. So that like really just kind of brought me back to humanity, that they're really supportive and kind. But it has influenced me today a lot, just because I want to share that with everybody else and let everybody know, doesn't matter what life's putting you through, just make sure to stay on that track and keep pushing yourself to what you want to do, no matter what. If somebody's pushing you down, just get back up and do it.
That's so heavy. That's crazy.
Sorry.
That's insane.
That was the only
No.
one. That's the only thing I was like,
No.
I don't talk
That's
about this, but
it's a huge defining moment in your life. Like that's crazy. But
yeah,
that's awesome that you can overcome through that and just, see the brighter side of things in life. Like that's really hard to do that. Like, so super props to you. That's
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, me and my husband are
done.
both very, very positive about just life in general. I mean, he survived. I mean,
Yeah.
he was shot in his temporal area, and the bullet just shattered in his head. So he has fragments all in his head. But, in the beginning, it was like, what do I do? Well, Starbucks helped me so much through it. I mean, it was a big, like, I give my life to them because they helped me through it. And the managers that were with me at that time, everything. So, but he's been pushing through, and I see a lot of change in him, and we have changed roles. So like when I was reading about like the male privileges, it's completely different. One thing that they had said was, the men helping the women with their kitchen cleaning and helping out with the kids. And like, I barely take care of my son because my husband does it all. He does all the house cleaning, the laundry, the cleaning, the cooking. don't ever wash dishes. I mean, that's just, it kind of just switched around. I did that for like a whole year and a half when my son was born, and my son was about 1 year old when that incident happened. So it was a big change, dramatic, you know. So he has changed his life and he's at home now, but it's just something that, you know, you have to do, and you just move on and you press forward.
Wow. That's a powerful story.
Yep.
Man. Thank you for sharing that. That must have been not too easy to share, you know. Yeah, I mean, I know we've all met a few times, but you know, we're still pretty much strangers, like
Yeah.
for the most part. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that's something that people need to hear, and I think that your story is definitely going to impact like a lot of people in a positive way,
Mhm.
especially with the way that you look at it and the way that you handle yourself. And I mean, that's like the definition of strength, especially, you know, being a mom and a wife and having that kind of trust, your life violated like that. Like that's insane. So thank you. Just thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Lauren?
so mine is definitely not as heavy. But when I was younger, I used to go to my grandfather's ranch to, he had a trail riding business, and I used to help him with the horses and take out trail rides. One thing that he instilled in me is that I wasn't able to ride unless I completed all my tasks first. So it was really that you have to work for whatever you want. Nothing is given to you. You have to work for it. And sense of work ethic that's stuck with me for 23 years. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Isn't it great that grandparents like are probably the ones that really put that work ethic into you? Like I feel like I got that from my grandpa too, or one of my grandpas. And then my other grandpa was pretty much the same way. He was very stern, and I'm glad that he was. And now he's very loving. But back when I was younger, he like molded me into the person, the worker that I am today. So, I mean, shout out to grandparents.
yeah,
I always thought I was so smart when I was, you know, teenager, that I knew everything. And man, if I had listened, I would have made a lot less mistakes. So yeah, it's interesting.
yeah. We hear all the stories.
Yeah.
We hear all the stories, but we don't actually listen to them.
Yeah. I think everything changed also when I became a mom. Like, you know, like you want so badly for your kid to succeed, and now I get it. And you know, I'm like, oh, no wonder why you're telling me to stop doing X, Y, and Z, you know, like all that stuff. But you just don't understand until you're like kind of put into their shoes in a way. So
Yeah, and
super
then
interesting.
it's tough because then as your kids get older and they start, you see them making the same mistakes that you made when you were a kid, and you're trying to preach to them and tell them, look, just please listen to me. I've made the same mistakes. I understand you don't, please listen to me. And they don't. They have to make, it's just, you have to make it on your own. My fiance I have a 16-year-old stepson, and that's a lot of the stuff that we go through right now. Is it's a lot of things that you try to tell them, like, no, listen, that's not the way to go about this. But sometimes part of it is you have to, you give them the advice, and then you just have to let them go and make their own mistakes and fail and, fall and scratch their knee and get back up.
Yeah. That's what my dad always said. He would be like, okay, well, now you have a car, so you need, insurance, registration, this, that. And he'd be like, well, and I'd be like, well, how do I do that? And he'd be like, good luck. And I'd be
Figure it
like,
out.
I had to figure all that stuff out for myself. But in the long run, it taught me how to be independent. And it taught me how, to just take care of my own things. And I think in the long run, it definitely, just made me into a better person. But yeah, interesting stories, guys. That's great. Should we move on, or anyone else want to share anything else? Ready to rock and roll? Okay. So we'll move on to the discussion of readings and videos. So what concepts were the most meaningful to you? Did the readings reinforce or contradict what you already knew or thought about teamwork? And what questions did they raise for you? So I guess I'll start. The concept that really stood out to me was from one of the TED Talks, and I think you touched on it earlier, Chelsea. It was the respecting the lives of Indigenous people, mostly because I come from Hawaii, where the culture was pretty much squashed there, and it was saying how diversity is like, one day our kids are going to live in a world without diversity, because everyone back in the day was trying so hard to get other people to conform to one way. And how sad it is, because the Hawaiian culture is actually very beautiful. It's all about music and art and food, and just the language is just sounds beautiful coming out of your mouth. And it's so sad that nowadays barely anybody speaks the language, and barely anybody eats the food. It's got like a different kind of it's not really seen as a culture, just more of an attraction. Like it's just more of a play to get people to come as tourists. So I have so many people when I was living in Hawaii, even my own in-laws, that would come and visit, and they'd be like, wow, what a beautiful mountain. I'd be like, yeah, well, that was actually the site of a huge battle, like back in the day for the Hawaiian Islands. And I tell them all about it, and they'd be like, wow, I had no idea. I've been here 4 times and I've had no idea. I just thought it was a pretty mountain. So it's interesting, like how much, we don't know about other people's cultures, and how being inquisitive wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, into learning about other people's cultures. So that really stuck out to me.
Yeah.
Not quite. Go ahead, Chelsea.
I was going to say, just same for me. Like, I think the cultural values and stuff, like definitely with that TED Talk for sure. And just like the different kinds of values, and just the way things way people like process things, I don't know, in like other countries and things, and like the individualism and collectivism, like cultures and stuff. And so that's what was interesting the most to me, I think. Just because I don't come from like Visalia is not very diverse. It's got like some people like different, but whatever. But I don't know. I feel like it's very majority of one thing. I don't know. So for me, it was interesting to read about those concepts.
Yeah, and like I grew up in a melting pot. Everyone that I know was not just one race. Like everyone was mixed, like Japanese, Hawaiian, Chinese, Filipino, like anything you can imagine. And I want my kids to grow up in a world like that. And I just think that, it definitely reinforces what I thought, which is that, diverse teams are better. That's basically was my thought process before I even went into it. And I think it's primarily because I'm an inquisitive person. I like to learn about cultures and languages and food. I think it's fascinating. I love to travel. So yeah, I think that definitely reinforced everything that I originally thought about it.
Yeah, I think
I'll agree that the diversity was something that stuck with me too. And just, it's interesting the different perspectives that you get from all these different cultures. And with the TED Talk where the guy was talking about malaria and how like the tribe in Peru had found the keen eye or whatever it was that was something that they could use to protect themselves against malaria. And then when that quit working, then they were able to use the herb from China that they had found. Like that just really kind of, I guess, was a great metaphor, really painted it out for me and showed, how important all of this, the diversity is, and all these different cultures, and, everybody has something different to add. I think that's awesome. That really stuck with me.
Reinforces that we all need each other in some way or another.
Well, it seems like it's kind of a knife edge too of Like you want to highlight the differences with everybody, but at the same time, I think that it's important that we all understand that we should work together too, right? Like we're all in this together. So while we're all different and we bring our different ideas to the table, at the end of the day, I think that we all need to kind of have that common goal of we're all in this together.
Agreed. Common goal, important.
I think I definitely agree as well. Like diversity, culture, learning from other people, it's important. I mean, uh, my husband's Filipino, and when I went to the Philippines, I learned a lot about their culture and how it is there. I mean, they're very respectful. Older people are like they're gods. Here, America, older people are just old grumpy people. In the Philippines, they like love old people, but which is funny to me. But I mean, it's important to just be open-minded and learn different cultures and explore and go and travel.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I had the same thoughts as you guys as far as the diversity really sticking with me, and how big of a difference that makes in how successful your team is. Going to talking a little bit about one of the articles about how they did the study with the fraternities and sororities and the murder test.
Yeah.
I thought that was really interesting that when you have 3 people that were from the same fraternity, and then you had a 4th that was from an unknown group, that while it felt really uneasy and really uncomfortable, those teams had the most success. So it really illustrates how that diversity plays into it.
Have you guys ever heard or seen the show Working Moms?
Oh,
I've heard of it.
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
So one of the characters is a marketing executive, and she goes to a meeting. She shows up late, which is, not right. They're pitching to this lady. And it's a conflict between the 2 workers. One's a male, one's a female. The female was late. And she shows up, she's a mess because she's a working mom, right? So she looks like crap, essentially. But the guy pitches to the woman. She's an older woman, and, she's like, whatever, I don't really like it. And then the woman comes in and she looks a mess, she's definitely not prepared for this meeting. She's flustered, but she nails it. And in the end, she tells the guy who she's competing against, hey, it's okay. You had a great pitch. She just needed a little more nurturing, which I think highlights, how diversity is important in teams, because sometimes women are naturally nurturing. That's just how we are. We're empathetic. It's science. So it's I think it's important to have different genders on teams, different approaches. And I think the same goes for different cultures as well. Yeah. I thought another concept, I think you talked about this, Alyssa, the male privilege and staying home, take care of the kids. Because that is a what do you call that? Just something I deal with all the time. Something I'm afraid of being judged for. I send my son, he's 2, to a Mother's Day Out program, but I almost feel bad telling that to people because of the fear of people thinking that I'm a lazy mom, or I feel like I have to justify sending him, or even days when, I finish all my schoolwork, but I just want some me time. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so I'm afraid to be like, oh, well, yeah, he's just going to go to school, or I just need that time. But it's interesting how it highlighted that there.
One example is when I was staying at home and I would take my son to a doctor's appointment or just different things that he had to go to. Okay, they wouldn't say much, but then my husband started doing it. Oh, you're such a good dad. you're taking him to his doctor's appointment. I'm like, I did the same thing. Like, I don't understand this. And I always talk to my husband about this, and I'm like, I said, see, people just base it off of your sex, and that's it. I said, if you're a guy taking your son or your kids to the park, you're a good dad. The mom does it, oh, that's what they're supposed to do, so it's unfair, and it shouldn't be like that. And I feel like people need to be more aware of it and like recognize it, like, men and women do the same thing.
It's true.
Yeah, and I think in one of the TED Talks, the guy points out like that it's a lot of times from the male perspective, it's, oh, I can pitch in or I can help out, but that's not what it should be, right? It should be sharing, like this, it's, we're in this together. It's a 50-50 split.
What is the male perspective? That's my question. I'm asking you two males up in here.
I'm feeling kind of beat down after watching all the things that I watched.
Well, I don't know. I feel like as a stay-at-home mom, I definitely like have built up resentment a little bit, sometimes that I try to battle, because I feel like I do so much, but at the same time, he's like, I do so much, and I think it's a source of conflict. So it's just interesting to see like what the male perspective would be, like how Alyssa said, this is supposed to be our role, but at the same time, I feel like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, I work. Okay, there ain't no downtime, no.
I did it for a whole year. I stayed home for a whole year, and I was going crazy. I said, this is nuts. I said, who does this?
Oh my gosh.
And I couldn't do it. I had to go back to work, and I told my husband, I have to go back to work. I don't care. We're going to split my time. I'll work in the morning, and then I'll come home. You go to work, so we don't have to get a babysitter. But staying home with a 1-year-old child, basically, you don't communicate. You're talking to nobody. You're just talking, and you're wondering if this child understands you. You pretty much live by yourself, and you kind of go crazy. So you want that time with other people or communicate, talk, I mean, they even have like Mommy and Me, like websites and like places you can meet other moms to go and meet up. And it's like,
that's funny.
It sounds exhausting.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't even know this person, but let me meet up with them anyways. Yeah.
A lot of moms do that at the museum, actually. It's kind of funny. And then we do have a toddler time drop off that they can just drop them off, for 4 hours. And it's like $20, and they stay at the museum until they can do whatever they want. A lot of the times moms are like, I'm just going to go home and take a nap. Or, I'm just
going to have a nap area right there in the museum. No driving required.
Exactly. I'm going to go, shopping or whatever. And I'm just like, no judgment. Just do what you got to do. They're in safe hands here. We're all qualified. So it's just so funny that there really is things like that.
Mm-hmm. That's why my girlfriend's kids go to daycare twice a week.
Yeah. It's definitely important, I feel like, for everyone to like understand each other, like from different perspectives, and especially in team and organizational settings. Yeah. Like to get to know each other, to establish that psychological safety, to how we like openly showed each other a very vulnerable side of like all of us by sharing those stories that were very personal.
Yeah.
So I can understand how that would be like a good team building exercise, because it definitely, you see that person in a new light. Everyone's really focusing on what that person is saying, and I think that's important in team building. Now that everybody just said that.
I mean, you saying that and going back to the question you asked earlier of what the male perspective is. I mean, my perspective is that it's a team effort, right? It's not just her, it's not just me, both of us together. Because if one of us fails, really we both fail. So
yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I totally agree that it's a team thing. It's 50-50 split, but it's something that varies so much opinion, individual to individual of not everybody feels that way about it, unfortunately.
Uh,
And that seems to be kind of like a reoccurring theme in all of these courses, is that um, kind of the first step in all of these in trying to change it is just knowing and recognizing that this is an issue. Yeah, crap, there is an issue with gender, or there is an issue with diversity in teams, or just in our culture and how we look at it, and stuff like that. So I don't know, while it's ultimately get to the point of asking the question, well, what do we do to fix it? And it's not always just an answer right there on the tip of somebody's tongue. But I think that we're at least making progress and understanding what the problems are, and, recognizing it and starting to address it. So
one of the things that stuck with me from, I think it was in an article and in one of the TED Talks, but it was about privilege. And if you haven't felt it, then you have it.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was great. Yeah, that's totally a thing too. Yeah.
it's totally a thing. And it made me feel super bad,
Me too.
because I didn't, a lot of that stuff, I was like, yeah, I've never felt that. And it almost made me feel like I was a bad person for, being born in America or being born with white skin, right? So part of that, it was like I was a little hurt. I was a little offended with some of it, but at the same time recognizing like, shit, that's real. That's
Well,
legit.
you can recognize it though. I mean, like you do feel that hurt, but you can also see where they're talking, why they said that the way they said it, because it's a really an aggressive, topic in what our society is now. Unfortunately, like that's crazy how it is. And I mean, not to talk down on my community, but I'm like from Central California, and it's all dairy land around me. And so it's either you're a farm worker, or you're kind of in the middle, or you're the farmers, or you're the farmland owners. So here it's a very conservative society, and it's gotten a lot better over the years. We're definitely like gentrifying, becoming like more of a younger society here, and we're able to look past those kind of things. But the older generations in this town are very, very close-minded, totally, I mean, not to be blunt, but like white privilege, very much so. And it's really hard when you can see it happening in front of you, like at a restaurant, or, at the museum even, one group of family will come in and look completely at the next family, like in disgrace, like, how could you step foot in this place? And I see it all the time, unfortunately. So this whole chapter and everything, all the topics were relatable to my daily life here in Visalia, unfortunately. But I think it'll change. I believe that it will change, hopefully, soon. So.
Well, awesome, guys. Should we just move on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to discuss chapter 9, and in what ways do you think this team has enhanced the creativity of the team members? And in what ways do you think it has interfered with that creativity? So I put how we've enhanced creativity. Well, one thing that the book says was creativity can be enhanced through evaluation, surveillance, and even offering rewards. And I think all that is already embedded into the root of this class. You get rewards would be a good grade. Surveillance would be, someone observing our meetings and giving us feedback and that kind of stuff. And that's the same thing as evaluation. So I felt like that was, it's kind of all embedded into the course layout in a way. Yeah. So I think that enhances the creativity of our team, because we all know that she's going to review this later. It really pushes us to really apply these ideas to our real lives and answer the questions completely. I also feel like, our creativity was enhanced because everyone feels, like we get along. There's a good environment going on here. But I also felt like that may have interfered with our creativity, because we're all kind of alike. We're all seeking organizational leadership degrees. We're all, we have 2 managers from Starbucks. We're all about the same age, I'd say, like, late 20s, early 30s, whatever, mid 30s, whatever we are. We're all from America. You know what I mean? I think. Are we all from America? You know, just like all that kind of stuff. So I thought, you know, if we had, say, someone who was from Japan on our team, or someone who is from, you know, somewhere else, that maybe our conversations would go a little differently. Who knows? That's what I had on that.
I do think our backgrounds are different enough to where we all bring different perspectives, which lends itself to that creative part of it. I had something and I lost it.
I agree with you 100%. I think the more meetings we have, the more creative we get.
I
Does
agree.
that make sense?
Yeah, I think
'Cause-
every time we have a meeting afterwards, I feel like, okay, cool, I could have said this or whatever, but I didn't, and I'll save it for the next meeting, or, you know, but I always forget it anyways. I should write it down, actually, but I definitely look forward to speaking the next time, knowing that I feel better and more like positive about what I'm saying every time that we have a meeting. So I feel more open, I should say.
Also, a safe space to share our thoughts and ideas about what we're thinking or what we think we've learned in the reading.
Yeah, so what I had put down was, as far as like enhancing creativity of the team members, for me, I don't want to let you guys down. Like, although if I did a poor job, I'm sure, you know, she grades us individually, but I don't want to be kind of the weak link of the team that's, you know, oh, Scott he's not prepared again. He didn't, gosh, this guy every time, he doesn't do the reading. And so in that, I kind of feel like I have to bring my A game. You know, and if I'm going to be at my best, I have to make sure that I've, you know, done all the reading and I've watched the videos and I'm prepared, and like, you know, I don't want to let anybody down. So I feel like you know, you have to do better, or at least that's kind of the pressure that I've put onto myself. So I think that helps also to be a little bit more creative, and knowing that there's 4 other really smart people that I'm going to be in this meeting with. So, you know, I don't want to be the one that stands out for the wrong reasons.
I agree.
With that,
I had a borderline anxiety attack before this meeting because my husband's like, "Hey, I just got home. Let's go to the lake." Lake is 30 minutes away. It's 5:30. I am losing my mind driving up there. Like, nope, we're already committed. We're going. Like, pretty much not talking the entire time because I wanted to review my notes. And I shared with him after. I was like, I'm a facilitator. Like, it's kind of a big role, you know, like you have to be prepared. I mean, you have to be prepared every meeting, but I agree with you, Scott. It definitely pushes us to be more creative.
Yeah, I think the role of having the facilitator is great because, well, we all get to do it, but it kind of gives you, like, when I was a facilitator last time, I was like, okay, I got to make sure I got everything prepped. I know what I'm saying, like, you know, so coming to these meetings, you want to come, you know, in a state where you're going to talk and discuss things. I mean, the only thing that I could think of as far as us, I think we may bring up the same topics that could block our creativity. So we need to be more open about different subjects. Like, I always try to talk to my husband about this stuff, but he's a whole different mind with his train of thinking. Like, I talked to him about, like, American privilege. You know, how do Filipinos feel about that? Like, you know, but he's like, no, they don't think about this country. I'm like, well, that's what it says in the text, but you know, I don't know. So I'm like, okay. And then, I mean, when I was there, a lot of them wanted to move here, and it was like, they really, really, like, love Americans. And I'm like, why? Like, you guys have it so nice over here. It's like super beautiful. It's like relaxing. Everybody's super nice there. Like, not how it is here, I think.
That was an interesting part of the text, how it talked about, you know, what other countries think about America. My best friend lived in Bali for the past 6 years, and we went there together and lived there for a few months. And she was staying, she met a guy and dating for a really long time. But she'd always tell me how they don't really like Americans and they think we're crazy. And actually most of the texts that I read, it kind of, paints Americans to be loud and selfish, just different kinds of people from the rest of the world. So it's interesting that it brought it up in that kind of way.
Most of my friends fit that description perfectly. Obnoxious, loud.
I found it interesting that like that American Privilege article goes hard on, I don't know, I'm just going to say like it made me feel terrible to be an American, but then at the same time it said that you have all these people that are around the world that are striving to, be American or move to America. And it's like, well, if we're that terrible, then why is everybody trying to get here or, be American? What is it? Are we bad or are we not? Are we admired or are we hated?
So funny you say that, because my husband always asks me, like, do you even like America? I'm like, he's in the military, right? So he's like all about it, loves, this country, and I love this country, but I'm always like, gosh, how cool would it be if we lived in like New Zealand? How cool would it be if we lived in Germany? And he's like, do you even like America? Like, do you not want to be here? But it's just interesting, the way other countries operate. There's so much I've learned in this degree so far. And there's an example I'll tell you guys about later after we're done talking about everything if we have time. But yeah. Anybody else want to add anything to that? Interfered with creativity or how we enhance creativity? No?
For interfere, I had just came up with groupthink. The team is still relatively new and we're just still getting to know each other. So I'm sure that that's something that would kind of detract from the creativity and that, somebody has an idea and we all just kind of, that's good. I like that.